Good morning and welcome to the lecture Rational Policy Making Model. Rationality model for years has been widely assumed to be a primary method of policy decision making in both public and private organizations. So not only in government organization, private agencies also use this using this kind of rational model for many years. So rationality and rationalism are words. So rationalism, very often we see the use of word rational thinking, rationality, are in social sciences. It's a literature of social sciences is a major part of social science literature. But the rational thinking is mostly used in uh, decision making, and rationality is considered to be a very yardstick of wisdom in policy making. So the decision makers, the policy makers must have a wisdom while they deciding something which is uh, uh, targeted a public, targeted citizens. When the policy is for people, they must have the rationality in their mind for making their decisions. So this approach emphasizes that policymaking is making a choice among policy alternatives on rational grounds. Rational policy making is to choose the one best option. Robert Hammond observes that a rational policy is one which is designed to maximize net value achievement. Rational decision making model is a model of decision making in which it is assumed that, very simply we can understand that rational decision making is what? It is a model of decision making in which it is assumed that decision makers have clearly all information about a problem, its causes, its solutions of their disposal, whereupon a large number of alternatives can be weighted and the best one selected. So what is simply rational decision making model? The decision makers must know all the information with regard to the problem, its consequences, its solutions, while they coming to make a decision on a particular issue. So many alternatives there will be there, and finally the decision makers will select very effective, very best policy from those alternatives. So how can it be possible while analyzing every options, every alternatives? So that kind of policy making model is called simply rational decision making model. Thomas Dye equates rationality with efficiency. In his words, a rational policy is one that achieves maximum social gain. Among policy alternatives, decision makers should choose the policy that produces the greatest benefit over cost. So, a good policy is a policy which has more benefit than the cost. So, government decided to build a bridge in a particular region. So, the particular when the bridge is going to making its when the project is uh, on the building stage, it will distract or the new project spoiled a life of uh, hundreds of people who are surrounding, who are residing there, and many roads were broken, and so many issues were there. And after the comments, after the introduction of that particular project, and when the bridge is coming to operational, that make benefit, there's so much of benefit to thousands of people. So when it was the previous projects were which are spoiled for the new project, were only beneficial to hundreds of people, the new project will benefit thousands of people. So the cost spent or the expenditure made on that particular project is not in a term of monetary, not in terms of monetary, but we also say that in its uh, benefit side, or in its uh, the social side, it's more valuable, more weight is in the benefit side. So we can say that that kind of policy is very good for people. So a policy is rational when it is most efficient. That is, if the ratio between the values it achieves and the values it sacrifices is positive and higher than any other policy alternative. He further says that the idea of efficiency involves the calculation of all social, political, and economic values sacrificed or achieved by a public policy, not just those that can be measured in monetary terms. So, it do not measure in just in monetary terms. It also measure in social, political, and economic values, which are sacrificed, and the same values which are benefited by the people. Okay. Hence, political policymakers should be rational, but it is not easy. So, in order to be rational, it is desirable that policymakers should should have, or there should be, first step, identification and determination of the goals. So, take the case of online education. So, when the COVID issue is there, it may spoil a, at least 6 to 1 year uh, academic life from the student. So government decided to use other possible ways for giving education to the students. So they began to think about other options, other alternatives. So for thinking about other options, other alternatives, there should be some tasks, some goals should be there. So first they identify the goals. What are the goals? Should give education to children any way should give education to children, students, means from lower primary to the higher education. So how can we give education? uh, so what are the goals? Educate them, must use the materials, must use the resources, electronic resources, must use the talents of technicians, must use the capability of teachers, must improve the skill of teachers in using online facilities. So many tasks, so many goals are there. So first identify the goals and then ranking every goals based on its importance, the second step. And thirdly, identification of possible policy alternatives for achieving those goals. So how can we uh, get be benefited from the these uh, how can we can how can we get all these goals to be satisfied? What kind of policy is good? So they will think about the policy alternatives. There will be several options, several alternatives will be there, and then analyze many options will be there to give every family free internet connection and uh, with the TV. It's a very big project. So the possible way to just give the needable families those facilities and provide other facilities also. We can use mobile smartphones and uh, libraries and other, even channel. Government also used a channel Victor's tele-education program. So how the program should be implemented? What are the options? What are the resources we can use? So they will think about it, and they will analyze the cost benefit analysis. They will make the cost benefit analysis when this kind of option is selected. How will it enhance, or how it going to help the project, or the goals? So that kind of analysis should be there, cost benefit analysis. And for making rational policies, the decision makers should be uh, aware of these steps. That is the uh, opinion by Thomas Dye. Brewer prescribes certain requirements to policymakers in selecting rational policy. So the policymakers must know all the society values, preferences, and their relative weights. In a village, government decided to launch uh, a government firm in that particular region. So there is it is a very major agricultural area. So the villages have very issues. Their emotions is a government must solve the issues of the villages. So the how it going to affect the life of villages who are uh, uh, very dependent in that agricultural land. So the villagers will lose their land for that particular government firm, and uh, and when the project will be in operation, uh, how it help the villagers. So the government, the decision makers must know uh, the project is very best or a very better one than the agricultural issues of that villages. So they must know the value, so their emotions, their dependencies is on land. So they must know the values and the preferences. And when government decided to bring some decisions, they must clarify the goals and objectives. What are the targets, and what will be satisfied while bringing this policy. So the decision makers must clarify the goals and objectives and rank them, and they must know all the policy alternatives. They must know all the policy alternatives available and compare the consequences of each policy alternative. So when this policy, when the operation is in this way, it is very better than the other. So the government can say this is the best option. So there will be many options, and government finally taking very best one from the options. So some options is there, and its effect, its benefit, and how it benefit to the public, and its effect, and another policy is there, and its effect is different than the other. For example, uh, the court situation is there, here. So some social group, some a category of people think that uh, this is the situation we never expected. So no, there is no option. So we can close every educational institutions, and when the situation is okay, we can open the uh, institutions, and we can start regular classes for the students. Only regular classes is possible for the educational enhancements of students, and the other options like use of electronic medium is not a better thing. So we must use regular classes is only choice. So that is a thinking of a perception of a perception from the a group of uh, individuals. So another group of individuals think that uh, time is very precious. We cannot say that when the issue will be solved. So whatever it is, what we can use any option, any materials, any online facilities. Our intention is only don't waste our time, don't waste our career of our students. The education must be the go on. So whatever it is, the government must make any initiative for the continuation of education of our children. So that is another way of thinking by another group of category of people. So what is the weighted thinking? What is the weighted option? So we can say that the second thing is the weighted option. That is giving more benefit to the public than the other. So that is the weighted thing. So that is the analysis. Here, compare the consequences of each policy alternative and calculate the ratio of achieved to sacrifice the societal values for each policy alternatives. And finally, select the most efficient policy alternative that matches with the goals. So finally, the government will come into a policy option that is very best for the public. So using there will be many options, very many alternatives will be there, and finally government will decide a very best option from those options or those alternatives. So here just mentioned the um, uh, founded rationality model of Herbert Simon. So in this rationality decision making process, uh, we use a practical decision making model, but Simon is talking about a ideal type of decision making model. So in this rational policymaking model, policymakers will break the complexity of problems into small and understandable parts and choose the option that is best and satisfactory and avoid unnecessary uncertainty. So here, Herbert Simon adds something. So he says that although individuals are intendedly rational, their rationality is bounded by limited cognitive and emotional capacity. So we can say that every human being is rational, but sometimes their rational thinking is override by their emotional capacities. Rational policy making thus requires making hard choices among policy alternatives. It entails many stages. So in the first stage, to begin with, the policymaker identifies the underlying problem. So policymaker identifies the problem and formulates set goals, priorities. This is necessary because one goal may be more important than another. So when government decided to make a policy, the policymaker first identifies the problem. So what is the exact problem? So in a village there is a severe um, drainage issue is there. Uh, Sorry, in a city there is a severe drainage issue. So uh, what would be the objectives to give a good solution for the drainage situation. So and to clean the city, and it should be very friendly to everyone, and it should be very um, good to see the city very clean, and so many objectives will be there. And what is the main objective, what is the main task, what is the major goal is important. So prioritize the major task should be in the top, So at the second stage, the policymaker identifies the range of policy alternatives and options that help to achieve the goals. He prepares a complete set of alternative policies and of resources with weight of for each alternative. The process of identifying policy alternatives is a critical importance as it affects both the range and quality of alternatives. So then the policymaker plans or prepare a set of alternative policies, and this policy will operate like this, and this policies operate like this. So many policies options are there, so will prepare so many alternatives. And thirdly, the calculation of predictions about the cost and benefits of policy alternatives. And so many policies are there, policy options are there, policy option A, policy option B, policy option C, D, E, F, and the government will decide, will analyze the cost benefit analysis, and when analyzing it they think that option D is very better or very best policy among the all options. So after the cost benefit analysis, they will get the very best option. So the policymaker will calculate each policy alternative, both the expectation that will achieve the goal and also cost. Here there is a question of calculation, the cost payoff ratios of each alternative, and simultaneously fourth stage with calculating next expectation for each alternative, the policymaker is required to compare the alternatives with the highest benefits. It is possible that by comparing two alternatives, one may derive the benefit at less cost. So finally, so A to F options are there. And finally, government decided to select three options. And very finally, they decided to select two options. And when compare the two options, one is very best. So other when comparing the cost benefit analysis, government decided to select only the best option. That is the that gives the highest benefit to the people. And finally the policymaker select the most efficient policy alternative. So that kind of stages is there in the rational policy making model. The concept of rationality is espoused or adopted to such an extent that many types of rational decision models are to be found in the literature of social sciences. Thomas Dye, as shown in the figure, has given an example of a rational approach to decision system that facilitates rationality in policy making. So, how to adopt rational policy making model? So, this picture shows how to adopt a kind of rational policy through this model. So you can see that first inputs, all resources needed for the pure rationality process, and all data needed for the rationality process, that is actually our inputs, and which are coming to the second stage, establishment of complete set of operational goals, preparation of complete set of alternative policies, establishment of complete inventory of other values and resources with weight. So take the case of um, corona issue, and when the citizens who are in abroad uh, decided to come back to the state, come back to Kerala. So the Pravasis, the non-Keralite citizens who are residing in the, or they are working in the other nations, are coming back to their home, and when they come back, it is very difficult to test whether they have COVID or not. So government decided how to manage it. So government must make a policy on that issue. So how to manage it. So how government will decide, will think about it, and they will use when they come to the when they arrive at uh, airports. There will be health workers and police officers, and then we can test them. The the person who has severe condition should be uh, should send to the uh, COVID care treatment centers, and some the person who do not have any symptoms, government must take arrangements for the institutional quarantine. So government need, so the first box you can see establishment of complete set of operational goals. So that is which is the best option. They will think about it. There are so much options there, but government will think about what is the best option. So preparation of complete set of alternative policies. So uh, even to give them 14 days institutional quarantine or 7 days institutional quarantine, and to whom it should be given, to the severe conditions or aged groups. So they will prepare a complete set of alternative policies, and also they will establish complete inventory of other values. The values means the resources, police, health workers, nurses, hospitals, even ventilators. So what is the best option? To provide everyone is not okay. Provide ventilator facility, provide only to the very severe condition patients, and others should be sent to the uh, institutional quarantine, and deploy police over there, and make use of teaching staff as a help as to the assistance to the health workers. So that kind of resources, how the government, how these resources should be used, so that they establishment of complete inventory of other values and related weights. And in the second stage, preparation of complete set of predictions of benefits and cost for each alternative. Then they analyze every uh, alternatives and its related weights, and calculation of net expectation of each alternative. And finally, what will be the result while going through this alternative, and what will be the result while we select this alternative. And finally, comparison of net expectation and identification of alternatives with the highest next net expectation. They will decide a very good plan, a very good policy on that issue, how to tackle the situation. So that is a output that is coming from a very rational style of policy making. So that is actually the pure rationality. That that would be the pure rationality policies. So every policy coming under rational policy making model, every policy is coming under these kind of processes, and finally as outputs or rational policies. Okay, thank you.